Welcome to Blue Line Lore. I'm your host, Cobalt Blue. You can just call me Cobalt. I invite you to join me as I conduct interviews, analyze data, and dissect media on a variety of topics concerning American law enforcement and the ever-evolving society that we are tasked to defend. My hope is that thoughtful, earnest discussion of these topics will better equip us all to form a more perfect union within these great United States of America. Settle in as I delve into the past, present, and possible future of American law enforcement. These are the chronicles of Blue Line Lore. Hello and welcome, viewers and listeners. We are back with the second part of this interview with one Nicola Maguire, a fantastic EMS first responder, a sibling in first responding, and we're so happy to have her. But right now, we're going to step back a little bit and talk about a little bit more than just doing our first responder thing. Nicola, you have an organization that you are president and one of the founding members of. Would you like to talk to us about it? What is the elevator pitch for your organization, Responders for Pride, and its mission?
But this was something that was hard for me to come up to for an elevator pitch, right? Because when you start talking about something that you're passionate about, it kind of, you kind of just want to keep talking about it. But to get something in 30 seconds, I was like, that's hard. We're Responders for Pride. We're a fantastic Baltimore-born nonprofit. We support our LGBT and our ally first responder community. Our mission is to boost overall well-being of both of these groups, our firefighters, first responders, and our LGBT community. We want to raise awareness, drive some cultural change, foster a more united and resilient community in both first responder and LGBT communities.
What inspired you and the other founding members to create this nonprofit, despite your busy schedules?
So with many good things, some things come out of spite. My department allowed me to create a Pride t-shirt that we wore for 4 wonderful years during the month of June. We created a t-shirt, we came up with a design, me, Susan, and Katie. If you check out our website, she's our designer for our t-shirts. We sold them, we took all of the profits and we donated them to the Trevor Project. We did that for 4 years. And then our department decided that we could no longer wear any affinity shirts. And from that came Responders for Pride, because we were making an impact and changing so many things for our LGBT first responders that we wanted to continue to embrace that feeling of belonging, and Responders for Pride was born.
Like any birth, I suppose it's a little rocky, but it births something wonderful. Nicola, you used the term LGBT. Are you okay with me referring to us collectively as queer and queerfolk, or would you prefer LGBT? I'm fine with either one.
Queer is fine.
For those who don't know, there are some people who have had some negative experiences with the term queer, and they're not exactly comfortable with it. So it's good to ask in polite conversation with that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
RFP, or Responders for Pride, has a very diverse online presence. It's got a podcast, a YouTube channel, a website, merchandise, and social media outreach on several platforms. That's how we were lucky enough to reach out to you. What message are you hoping to project to the world with this collective presentation?
So when you put it like that, we do have a lot, right? But I think that the social outreach and the YouTube channel kind of start to go hand in hand. I think that is our way that we get our resources and our collective resources that we kind of bring together out to the world, out to the people. Our mission has grown over the last year, and our mental health aspect has truly taken a front seat to that. And I think with the growing population, the growing trends on social media, you have to have a diverse outreach to get your message out to the different types of people. We have people that work and age groups that work in different social media platforms. So where our older platform tends to go onto Facebook, we have a younger platform on the Instagram and on TikTok, to be able to bring all of these people together in that community of first responders and the LGBT community. I think we need to be able to be collective, like you say, and be able to do that. Our YouTube channel and podcast, I'm going to be honest, that was from Katie Bingner, our mental health ambassador. She is championing that, and she and I genuinely sit down and have fluid conversations about important things.
Your podcasts are great. Getting back to messaging, and this actually segues directly into our next question. Your podcast has thus far covered multiple topics: suicide prevention, communication, decompression, and the queer experience within the first responder professions. Most of these topics are relevant to anyone, especially a first responder. Was this by design, and if so, to what end?
Absolutely. We pride ourselves on being consciously inclusive. And by consciously inclusive, we embrace all first responders. You do not have to be LGBT to partake in some of the things that we conduct. We want you to be able to have the resources and the ability, like I have said multiple times, to not leave this career broken, and to be able to make those mental health topics available to everybody. Yes, we focus on the first responder part of it, but a lot of it is also the first responder spouses that can benefit from listening to some of our video. We've had so much feedback from our ally community. It's just been remarkable to some of these podcasts and videos that we've put out there. I feel that the fact that we were consciously inclusive from the beginning has just helped get that message out.
We discussed this some in the messaging, but I think there is some level of communication that is necessary because there are some people who may have a different perspective, and when they hear responders for Pride or Out to Protect or any of these other pro-queer first responder alliances, if you will, some of them may get a little defensive for whatever reason, but the truth is, as first responders, we're still first responders. That's why we wanted to have that personal interview with you as well, Nicola, because at the end of the day, either you or I are more than just a queer person. We are queer people who are also first responders, uniformed people by trade. So there's more overlap.
Absolutely.
Yes, and there's more overlap with those who may be wary of us than they may realize, honestly.
Absolutely. It definitely is. It's hard to be a queer first responder sometimes, and to be able to be consciously inclusive and know that we are here for everybody, I think just helps unite a little bit.
It's swimming upstream, so to speak, but it is absolutely something that people can listen to, even people who may be wary of the queer LGBT experience. Once you're working with them, you answer a few calls with them confidently. That may open eyes. I've certainly seen it myself. I know some of the humans who are in Blue Line War have as well. That being said, you mentioned that you personally serve as a queer liaison for your department. Thank you for shouldering that responsibility. What have you learned from this responsibility, and has your approach to this duty changed over time?
Yes, it absolutely has. Again, I started off with the shirts, and we would not embrace an LGBT liaison at that time. It tends to be, for some departments, just a face, right? We have an LGBT liaison. They're right here, right? And they feel like that is enough to be inclusive within the community. However, that's not the answer. That's not how it works. If you want a liaison in your department, or you want to be the liaison in the department, you need to gather a group of people within the community, ally or queer folk, that can embrace this journey together with you. You are going to get a lot of negative press. I remember when my release came out for my department that I had probably 100 negative comments underneath when it was released onto social media. However, there was a lot of positive comments. Try not to focus on the negative press. Try to focus on those positive things, the outreach that you can do for your community through being this liaison. Most departments and organizations now have a diversity and equity inclusion officer. Reach out to those people. Find out what they feel the need will be. You will see holes within your department that you can fix. If you've got SOPs, some of the wording can be changed. Instead of it saying he, she, maybe you change it to member or officer instead of the he, she, in order to get the pronouns kind of together.
Terminology Check 6. Standard Operating Procedures, often referred to as SOPs. These are written guidelines that dictate protocols in a given organization, such as how routine tasks are performed. SOPs can cover everything from how often an employee has to wash her hands to a use of force chart for police departments to everything in between. SOPs cover just about everything that an organization, public or private, can expect an employee of any rank to do. One more quick note from a robot who has worked in law enforcement and in the US military. If some regulation within your SOP, or some subsection thereof, says that you will perform a task a certain way, you might get in trouble if you don't perform it that way. If that same document says that you shall perform a task a certain way, you shall get in trouble if you don't perform it that way. Now, you won't find that in any textbook definition of SOPs, but ask anyone you know who works as a first responder or serves in the military in a physical, procedural MOS like maintenance or construction, and they'll confirm what I'm telling you here. Okay, back to Nicola and responders for Pride.
Get the pronouns kind of together, the gender neutral bathrooms, the things like that that do make an impact in your LGBT members. You can be able to be the cultural change for that and to embrace that. One of the things that I have started to do is to talk to my recruit class. I do an LGBT history and awareness training, kind of go through the history of what we've been through, just to prove that we have been here all along and we do belong here without any type of judgment. And then to do the awareness of how to embrace the community, how to talk to the people all over. It is a hard road. It is a long road. If you want to be a liaison, it cannot all be done in one day. You have to take it slowly and embrace it slowly. I just started off with, I'm here for you. With your questions, come to me. And from there, it has grown into me doing a little bit more each day.
Thank you so much for your summary of that. It's the little things, the little policy changes can make a world of difference to people. I almost wanted to say at a larger department it can impact more people, but in a small department it could have a pretty significant impact too. Say you have a fire station or a fire department with 40 guys, and that's it. But there is one guy who may be gay, he may be reflecting on his gender and considering being non-binary, what have you, and that big difference, just put a nod towards that. It really does change the context in which this person would be serving with that fire department.
It absolutely does. And I've had many people walk into my office. I wouldn't say many, but a few, we'll go with a few, that have walked into my office and they've been like, can I talk to you? And I'm like, absolutely. And they sit down, they're like, we need to change the culture within this department. And I was like, I'm working on it. I'm doing the best that I can. What are your ideas, right? Give me your ideas. And I think in a fire department, I cannot speak for being a police officer, but I'm sure it is very similar. Being a gay male in a fire department is very hard. One day you could be the best fireman on that engine, the best person that drives it. But the moment you come out as a gay male to them, you become less than, you become weaker. And I think that that is something that impacts the way that those people are around the station. So like you said, those small stations, those small organizations, if we can embrace just the person for who that person truly is, allow them to be their true self and recognize that they are not less than, they are not weaker, they are just them, we can truly be more united on it.
It sounds so simple, but it can be simple and still be difficult, and I'm sure you've experienced that quite a bit.
Absolutely. It is a very difficult road. Like you said earlier, swimming upstream. It is very much that.
You mentioned social media comments, so sort of along the lines of gallows humor we talked about in the last video, a fun game to play is around Pride time, you're going to see all the police and fire departments on social media posting their Pride posts. See how long you have to scroll down and see the negative comments and the I'm unsubscribing. You'll get a few very angry ones that won't be deleted until the next day.
Right. So I see them. My department recently put up one post, and then underneath it, I see the people I work with commenting on how bad it is to put that post up. So yeah.
Nicola, it's wild sometimes. You'll hear people who are genuinely fine with working alongside you say that your department celebrating Pride is offensive, knowing that you're queer. It makes one wonder for a second, after all, if Pride is offensive to this partner, am I offensive to this partner? They'll always say that you're not, and I believe them, but there is some dissonance there that is concerning, to put it nicely.
the comments underneath of like, oh, we don't need to do this. We need to concentrate on this. And it's like, but we are concentrating on this. We're just saying, I hope you have a happy Pride. And it definitely changes the way you are viewed, or at least the way you feel you were viewed.
Sure, and what's wild is that sometimes people who may actually have a problem with your department posting about it, it seems from in our experience they don't actually have an interpersonal problem with us. We've been very lucky in that regard. It's such a strange experience where they are fine with you personally. They just don't want anyone posting a pro-pride thing for other people like you, and that's so strange. They're good partners, they've been real good to all of us, we're so lucky to have them. But it is strange, and it leaves it with kind of a almost ennui when we think about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I've had the same people that were commenting would be like, oh, how are your kids? How's the wife? And I'm like, great. But then 2 days later, they post something like that.
Yes, and it makes for such a dissonant experience. I think we're on the same page here, but I want to reiterate for those listening. If you're that guy who is genuinely fine with the queer people who work in your precinct, but not okay with your department celebrating Pride in official capacity, we're not saying you're a bad person or even a bad partner. It just leaves us with some uncertainty, and frankly displays some cognitive dissonance on your part that we'd really like you to reconcile, ideally by recognizing that inclusivity for queer folk isn't a threat to the straight people in your department on any level.
Absolutely. We definitely feel some kind of way about it. Yep.
Appropriately, the next question we have written down. Your website mentions that you have a lot of support and positive feedback since RFP's inception. Of course, you can count myself and the humans behind the scenes at Blue Line War among this support. Can we discuss that feedback, both positive and negative? Oh, we've already been doing that.
Yeah, so we have some quotes on our website where people have told us. When we first started doing our t-shirts, one of our members said that this was the first time he had felt seen in his 16-year career.
Wow.
Yes, first time he had felt seen, like as his true self and who he was in his career. I had a older gentleman reach out to us shortly after we went live with the website and started, and he stated that he was in the closet for his entire career and that he wished that there was something like this that would have supported him through his career because it was just too hard to be a gay firefighter. Yeah, we've had multiple people that have like said this is needed, this is what we need to do. The negative we get is like we just need to save lives. We don't need to talk about this. This isn't something that we need to talk about at the firehouse. Well, it's not something that we talk about at the firehouse, but when you start talking about your wife or your husband and your heterosexual relationship, I should be able to talk about my wife and my kids in the same manner, and it's viewed very different. And as I said earlier, it's almost like being in the queer community is less than. And I'm not less than. I am the same. And we should be able to talk about our families and our loved one in the same sentence that you can. And that's where it comes in. It's not about going out and saving our lives together. That we can do. That we do well. We work well together. It's when we come back to the station of the comments that are stated and the ability for us to not hide who we truly are.
You are never less than, Nicola, and neither are any of the people you bring on to respond for Pride.
Yeah, none of us are less than, and nobody should ever feel that way.
They shouldn't, and that's why Responders for Pride and other organizations are out doing what you do, and the rest of us so appreciate that.
You're welcome. Like it's definitely it has been humbling to hear some of the responses from people from us being able to do this, and I feel like we're making a difference, and that's enough for me to be able to make a difference.
Sounds like you already did. I think you said he was 16 years in and he had to be in the closet. That's so wild, and it's funny, we were just talking about how first responders can have, at times, their whole identity wrapped up in being a first responder. Even for people who retire, or for those who medically retire 15 years in and work another job, they're still seeing themselves as bleeding blue or still being part of the firehouse. They still hang out with those guys, they go to cookouts and stuff. And what's funny is You would think it's almost a failsafe to also be a queer person in addition to being a firefighter. The problem is, it's a separate part of their identity. Same thing as being a pastry chef or being a black belt in judo. These are all wonderful things, and they are all separate parts of one's identity. And yet, usually that means these are things to think about after you retire. But just being LGBT or queer, that isn't really something you just do after you retire. It's just something you kind of are.
It is something you are. And as queer youth, we grow up not being our true selves, right? There's something that we always hold back on. There's something that we don't fully embrace. And when we don't do that, we're denying ourselves of a really true happiness that comes along. And I think that that also plays into my mental health part of this is we've held ourselves back for so long being queer and not being able to be our truth selves that that also plays on us. And then we have what we see in our everyday job. I think it is something that needs to be addressed. It is something that needs to come together. And I think that is something that Responders for Pride and many of the other organizations together can hopefully accomplish in the future.
We're behind you all the way. And Nicola, we can cut this part out if you want, but you bring some up, and I wanted to ask, was that your experience in coming out?
So my coming out was, again, I grew up in London. It's a very cultural, diverse area. I have two gay uncles. And for me, it didn't feel like I was going to be shunned for being gay. I did, however, then move to the United States, and the view in the United States is very different from where I grew up. And that was right at that 15, right? That's right when I was really coming into my sexuality and things like that. And I knew I was a lesbian right from the get-go, but it did help me a little bit. I did try to fit into the social norms, and it was hard. I finally came out to my mom when I was 18, positive experience, and I came out to my dad when I was 19, again, a very positive experience. My wife, on the other hand, had a little bit of a more, she came out later in life, and it was a little bit more negative. But when it came to coming out at work, I got into our fire department when I was 27, and I still didn't want to tell them that I was gay. I didn't want to tell them that I was part of the queer community just because of the, and I hate to say it, but the stigma that comes on being gay sometimes.
Sure. Unfortunately, it's the thing. And even, of course, like I said, we were spoiled in the Pacific Northwest, and anywhere on the West Coast, most places you're probably safe coming out in your first responder organization. But there's always that nagging question, what if you're not?
What if you're not, right? What are they going to, will they not save me if something bad is happening to me?
Will they not answer if we need additional personnel? Will they, in an extreme case, and this is nothing any of the humans in Blue Line or experienced, but there's always the fear, are they gonna, like, jump me after work in the locker room or something? That's never happened to any of our guys. I need to emphasize that for those listening who know us personally.
Never happened for me either, but it's that just sits right here, doesn't it? It sits in the back of the head, and it's just like, what if?
That's a scary what if for those listening who are first responders. You know, for the most part, you trust everybody there. What if I actually can't? And that's a very, very scary thing, and it eats at you because it's not something you can really prove or disprove until, goodness forbid, it actually happens.
Exactly, yep.
Your organization's website mentions that volunteers are still needed. Where would a prospective volunteer reach out to your organization, and what kind of volunteer work needs doing?
We have a link on the website for people to apply if they want to be volunteers for us. We have one volunteer, he's up on our website, Carlos. He has helped us at Pride events that we need to get the word out, that we talk to people. We also plan on getting him into some of our at-risk trainings. We go out into the community, to the LGBT community, and we teach them the at-risk trainings, hands-only CPR, Stop the Bleed and Narcan training. Sadly, within our LGBT community, we do have a high homeless population, especially the trans population. They're an at-risk community, and we want to be able to give them the tools to be able to save their lives or their loved ones' lives or the community that they sit with lives if anything happens to them. God forbid another Pulse nightclub happens. They will have the ability and the training to be able to help save lives. We hope to get him into that. We kind of just do it as an as-needed basis. So when we're doing those trainings, depending on how large or how small it is, we would ask if volunteers would be able to assist with those things.
That'd be a great volunteer opportunity for someone who just got their basic life-saving card. That'd be great.
Absolutely, yeah.
If I may ask, and this should have been in the first video, do you all still use the song Stay Alive to keep the rhythm for your chest impressions, or has that been updated?
That is the one we use, and along with Callous Humor, Another One Bites the Dust is a song that also works. Beyonce's new Texas Hold'em song works well, and if you are teaching a younger community, Baby Shark also works. So there are many songs out there that actually fall to the beat of that 100 to 120 compressions a minute.
I was running those songs through my processors as you said that, and yes, those work. They absolutely keep the rhythm, and that is wonderful. Actually, I can't say Baby Shark's wonderful, but if that's what someone needs to save a life, I suppose I'll grit my gears and vary.
Absolutely, yes. Same. And I heard Baby Shark for a very long time with my twins. That was their song. So I would, if somebody started doing that, I'd be like, okay, keep going. Oh.
I suppose we have to tell ourselves it's to save a life.
Absolutely, yep.
Where do you see this organization and your role therein going in the long game? Has that vision changed since Responders for Pride launch?
It has changed. We're three women. One is an ally. One is a pansexual, and then there's myself that's a lesbian. And we honestly, we work. Two of us have kids, and we honestly take it month by month to see where we go. We began with that sense of belonging within departments, right? To embrace that culture, to put forth that we belong here and that we've been here all along. It has definitely grown into a mental health resource for people. The long game, that's just something I thought about when I saw this question come across, and it would be amazing to have a similar kind of stance like the International Association of Firefighters does, to have those protections and unionize, I wouldn't say unionize, but just those protections for our LGBT first responders all over. As you know, last year over 500 anti-LGBT laws were proposed.
Yes.
This goes against us in every way possible. For me and my wife, we've thought about second person adoption for our kids just in case something happens that I was the one that carried the babies, but if somebody wanted to take them away from her, how would that look from these anti-LGBT laws? And as a first responder, currently, there's nowhere for me to go to get that information. We don't have, I know in my union and things like that, we don't have those LGBT safe spaces for me to be able to go and talk to somebody. We are working on it. It is something that I am working on within my department. But I think to be able to have that similar kind of organization like the IAFF and to be able to have those protections for our LGBT first responders and to be able to put that information out, I think would be amazing. But again, that is a very long game, and we will see. We're just keep moving forward is our goal right now.
Honestly, Nicola, I'd like to think that in another few years or so, something like that wouldn't be needed, but I'm not holding a lot of salt in the concept that it's just, this is all going to go away in 4 or 5 years, so we may well still need that. I know the term safe space may be overused sometimes, but I think it's valid here because when you're thinking about possibly your wife losing your kid if something happens to you, yeah, I think you need some safety rails in place for that, to put it mildly.
I need somewhere to be able to go to talk to somebody that is that knows those rights, that knows what we need to do in order to do that, and then that's not something that we do. We sometimes we get wills for first responders where somebody comes out, but there's not an LGBT pro one. It's just very it's based on the heterosexual kind of marriage and how that goes, and I think that we need to be able to get people in that can specialize in the laws that are different for us. One day I hope we don't have laws that are different, but we currently do, so how do we protect our members?
We have to face things as they are. It'd be wonderful. And in some states, I suppose you could just put in parentheses, is, despite the heteronormative language, this applies to any and all couples. You can't do that in every state, though. There are some states where that's actually not true, so you can't even write that in good faith.
That's correct. I mean, we still travel to some states with our advance directive. So if something happened to either one of us, we'd be able to go into the hospital and be like, no, I am making the decision, where some people wouldn't allow me as her wife to make the decision on what's going to happen.
There's no universe where that is acceptable. I'm so sorry that you all are still living with a situation like that in some parts of the country.
Exactly. Yeah. And so if we can move that forward, where I could be like, no, I'm her wife, these are the decisions we're making, or her to say, no, I'm her wife, these are the decisions we're making, it would truly would be nice to not have to take those extra steps to protect ourselves.
Not to have extra worries on top of the kinds of worries you're describing, where you have to make those decisions for your spouse. That's something anyone of any persuasion would understand the concern thereof, and understand why it would be terrifying to not be able to make a decision, a medical decision, on behalf of your spouse if the worst happened. I hope, Nicola, you and your wife don't have to deal with that.
I appreciate that. So me too.
If you could go back in time with your current experience intact, what, if anything, would you have done differently as for creating and running this particular nonprofit?
I would have done it sooner.
Okay.
I would have been scared to be me and my true self and speak out against the things that I hear and see in a firehouse. And I would have done it sooner. It's a very short answer, but that's it. I would have just done it sooner and started to help people sooner.
From one first responder to another, I'm sure you've heard this a million times, but the second best time to start is right now.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm glad we did start it, and I'm glad that we are moving forward and getting it. It's definitely growing. Some days it feels like it's growing very fast, and we're just like, whoa, what is happening? But it also feels good at the same time.
Absolutely, and you can count our channel, of course, as one of your supporters. Will always be watching and occasionally commenting on your videos. I know that's not the only component you all have, but we'll support you in what ways we can.
We appreciate that so much, so thank you.
Speaking of supporting, could you please walk our audience through the experience of setting up a merchandise store, which we'll be plugging at the end of this video? What were some of the decisions that had to be made, and were there any unexpected problems that had to be overcome?
So this is where I would normally bring in my behind the scenes person, Susan. She's my IT girl. She makes everything happen. Me and computers, yes, I can work them, but I am not the person to be like, oh, this is an SEO. This is what we need to do. That is beyond me. When we started out with our shirts, it was honestly a spreadsheet that I made in Google Sheets. She was able to help me organize it, and it became a Google form that somebody filled out. Then it would autofill the spreadsheet for me. We moved to Shopify, which was a great platform. If you already have your product and you're able to sell it, it's very simple to set up on Shopify. I could even do it, so I know that one is an easy one. We've recently moved to Wix. For our website building, and which again she built, which is amazing. She takes care of all of that. And that allows us to add our merchandise onto that and be able to make a shop front store. It is very user friendly. I've gone in and made changes to the website through this platform, and it has worked really well for us. We use Printify and Printful for our merchandise, and that's a direct to garment type product. So instead of holding merchandise, they only make it when somebody orders it, and then they send it to them. So there is a little bit of delay in the person getting the merchandise, but it allows us to not hold a lot of merchandise and see where we go from there. Some of the unexpected problems you come with, it's coming up with the ideas, right? Seeing what people will like, and then the pricing. We try not to overprice anything. We need to make a little bit of profit to be able to make the mission keep moving forward, but we honestly just want to be able to get good stuff out to people to show them that they can be a first responder, they can be part of the queer community, and they can wear something that says both and be accepted for that.
Where do we go for that merchandise, Nicola? Is there a website you all have where we can purchase your merch?
We have a website. It's respondersforpride.org. On there, we have a shop for our merchandise. We also have an area for some of our resources, and it will link you to our YouTube channel too, so you can watch some of our videos.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's how you get to see what Responders for Pride is up to. Are there any recommendations or advice for other first responder agencies looking to incorporate an LGBT liaison?
Like I said, it goes beyond being the face, right? Reach out. We have a whole section on how to be an LGBT liaison on our website. I am also, as I am a liaison, I am also there for questions. We recently just met with somebody from a neighboring jurisdiction, and we walked them through how to get their liaison program off the road. I am happy to meet by Zoom and kind of walk you through how to get it going and how to navigate the rocky road that it's going to be.
And they can reach out to you on your website?
Absolutely. We have a contact form on there. You can just ask your question, and we normally respond within 24 to 48 hours on the actual website. Social media, sometimes it takes us a little bit longer, but you can also reach out to us on social media.
Nicola, thank you so much for your time. Do you have any closing thoughts for me or for the audience?
Thank you to Cobalt Blue for just supporting us and for having me on here. It truly has meant a lot to be able to talk about what the organization is for and talk a little bit just about me and what I kind of have been doing in my first responder life. For the audience, just know that somebody you consider your work family is struggling to be their true self every day. Build within yourself a place that they can truly be themselves, a place where they belong and accepted. Know that being queer, again, like we've said, it does not make you less than. You are a strong person, and you have the ability to change lives every day in what we do.
Thank you very much for that last bit, Nicola. That means a lot. We appreciate that. We're appreciated. Short of either our crew or yours turning out to be axe murderers, we're going to be with you from the start to the finish. If this journey ever ends, and it may not, but we're going to be with you all the way. We are so appreciative of what you do. We consider ourselves fans, and it's nice to know the feeling is mutual. We want to work with you in helping all people, all first responders, and sometimes taking time aside to help queer first responders specifically, because that is a specific demographic that is sometimes underserved. And during Pride Month, and usually one video before or after, because Pride is more than just 1 month, we're going to go out of our way to try to feature that. And it's nice to know that you all are doing the same year round.
Yeah. So, again, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Kind words.
Of course. Thank you so much for your time, Nicola. We're going to let you take care of the kiddos.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Responders for Pride. What a wonderful organization. I'll put a link to their YouTube channel in the description and list their website as well. Returning viewers might have noticed that yesterday's episode with Nicola was only about her experience as a first responder. It was a conscious choice on her part and mine to structure these 2 episodes as they are presented now. Much like how first responders are more than just what we do for a living, queer folk are more than who we love, or who we don't love. Hopefully yesterday's episode illustrated that much about Nicola. As for me, the cartoon machine with a consciousness, well, I don't feel the impetus to fall in love with anyone, nor am I an organic being, therefore I do not procreate like you mammals do. That makes me both aromantic and asexual, or aro-ace by default. But human beings who are aro-ace are statistical anomalies, and are often misunderstood by their fellow humans who do feel sexual or romantic attraction to other humans. There is a popular content creator, Jaden Animations, who has a video dedicated to being a human on the aro-ace spectrums, and I'll put a link to it in the description below the video. I suppose that's about as close as you'll get to a Cobalt coming out video, but there's still a couple things that I want to ruminate about. I think there was a lot of wisdom in Nicola's advice to try not to focus on negative press as a queer person on the internet, let alone as a queer first responder in real life. The culture behind the badge is becoming palpably more tolerant of queerfolk within its ranks, and it's only going to get better as time marches on. Obviously, first responders, particularly police officers, always need to worry about potential threats. A lot of people don't like us for the uniform we choose to wear, no matter how many people we help while wearing it. But some of the same people who would thank us for donning the badge would accuse us of horrible things if they knew that we were also queerfolk, and a healthy level of caution is warranted when interacting with people like that too. Nonetheless, acceptance of queerfolk is spreading in the common person, even if not all of them walk around with microphones like queerphobic people seem to. It's important to remember that. For example, more young people these days are able to safely come out to their peers and even their parents in many cases, even if that, sadly, isn't the norm just yet. I am happy to know that Nicola's coming out was a positive experience, and I am confident that we're only going to see more instances like hers as American society continues to evolve beyond these growing pains. I am not downplaying the contemporary legislation that is levied against us out of ignorance and cruelty, and the team will be happy to do a video on some of that legislation and why it's bad if a few people tell us they'd like to see it. But no amount of legislation will erase us. We've always been here, even among your fire departments and police departments, and we're not going anywhere. Our own human crew isn't entirely heteronormative either. To name just one example, I was drawn by a trans man, and the portrait you see before you was sketched by him before my entire design was even finished. That was true long before my first interview with Stephanie Power, and it'll continue to be true no matter how many interviews I have with United States peace officers and other experts about topics that have nothing to do with queerness. If you are a straight person, and you are at all skeptical of Nicola's assertion that you have more in common with queerfolk in your career field than you think, I invite you to subscribe and tune in to our past and future episodes about law enforcement in fiction and reality on this channel. I am certain that any first responder will find something they can relate to in our growing catalog already. But for now, that's all I have for you. Thanks again to our small number of greatly appreciated subscribers and returning viewers. If you'd like to see more, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment telling our team what you'd like to see me cover next. Or, at the very least, visit Responders for Pride and get yourself a t-shirt, or subscribe to their YouTube channel that we've linked in the description of this video. They'd love the support, and I for one would love to see them garner more support through this interview. Until next time.